The only thing more embarrassing than your debit card declining when you go ahead and try to buy a $2 pack of gum from Walgreens would be avoiding these mid-round draft picks that I believe are essential to building the perfect fantasy team in 2025. But before we break down these 7 mid-round picks in depth, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. So without further ado, let's get into today's video. We begin with DK Metcalf, wide receiver of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Current consensus ADP from websites like Sleeper, ESPN, and Yahoo. He's coming off the board as the wide receiver 22 at pick number 49. Now, when you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers offense as a whole, things are drastically different when you compare it from last season to this season. Last season, their starting quarterback is Justin Fields, and then they pivot to Mr. Unlimited, Russell Wilson. Both of those guys are now in MetLife playing for the Jets and the Giants. When you look at the wide receiver core, George Pickens, sure, he doesn't have that crazy of a year, but George Pickens is the wide receiver 1, and now, instead of being in Pittsburgh, he is in Dallas with Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys. When you look at the tight end, sure, Freiermuth is still in Pittsburgh, but they add in Geno Smith from the Dolphins in that trade where they acquired Jalen Ramsey and traded away Minkah Fitzpatrick. So this is a much different offense. And obviously now Aaron Rodgers is the starting quarterback of the team. So when you look at the wide receiver core, DK Metcalf, Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson, and Bobby Tree's Robert Woods. When you look at this wide receiver core, it is beyond evident that DK Metcalf is the wide receiver 1 on the team. And sure, you could like the big play upside of a guy like Calvin Austin. You could talk yourself into what Roman Wilson could become. And then Robert Wilson's like, Robert Woods, I called him Robert Wilson. Robert Woods, Bobby Trees is like halfway into the retirement home, right? So DK Metcalf, there are levels in the NFL, and he is levels above the other wide receivers. So there is, in my opinion, no competition for him to be overtaken as the wide receiver 1 on the team. Now, a lot of people are going to point the finger at one guy, the bad guy, and that is going to be Aaron Rodgers, right? Aaron Rodgers had a very distinct fall off going from the Green Bay Packers to the New York Jumbo Jets, and things didn't go very well last year. And if you look at the stats of Aaron Rodgers, comparing him with his time with the Packers to the Jets, it's night and day. It is very, very different. The Jets end up being a complete and utter laughingstock, despite the fact that a lot of NFL analysts were just massaging the nutsack like it was a happy ending for the Jets in the preseason. Everyone talking about, oh, the Jets are back. Robert Saleh's a genius. This team is going to be amazing. They might win the Super Bowl. And then the Jets go down like the Titanic. Robert Saleh gets fired. So there was a lot of weird things going on with the Jets last season. And sure, we can admit that Aaron Rodgers didn't play that well, but he was coming off of a torn Achilles that he suffered in week 1 in 2023 up against the Buffalo Bills. So while I'm not going to just say that Aaron Rodgers this season is going to lock in and look like he did back in the day with the Packers when he was the back-to-back MVP, the discount double check man, I get that he probably isn't going to hop into the hot tub time machine and become the guy that he used to be. But I do believe that he can perform better now that he is another year removed from the Achilles injury. Now, DK Metcalf has been a guy that in the past I have faded. In the past, I have told you, you are crazy for drafting DK Metcalf where he has been getting drafted, and he continued to be a letdown. His best season was back in 2020, his sophomore season, where he was the wide receiver 10 in terms of points per game. Last year didn't go so well, but the reason why it didn't go so well was because there was a whole lot more target competition. When you talk about the Seahawks, they had Metcalf, they had Jackson Smith-Njigba, and they had Tyler Lockett. So when you have competition like that, it may be a little bit tougher for a guy like DK Metcalf to develop a lot of consistency. But now when we've got Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson, Robert Woods as the other guys competing for targets, and sure, they have Geno Smith as well, DK Metcalf is clearly the #1 target on this team. We saw the upside last season. We have seen throughout this guy's career that he has the upside to score 30 plus fantasy points in any given matchup. We just need to see it come at a more consistent basis. And I believe that is what is going to happen in Pittsburgh. We have seen Aaron Rodgers just close his eyes and lock into one wide receiver throughout his career. Previously, it was Adams. It started to look like Garrett Wilson early last year. And then the Jets were like, fuck it. We're losing every game. Let's trade for Davante Adams. And that became Davante Adams again last season. So Rodgers loves to lock into one wide receiver. And the wide receiver he is going to lock into is going to be DK Metcalf. So again, I get the last couple of years, if you drafted him, he left you looking like a fool. If you drafted him against my advice, you might have felt bad, but this season, I believe the bounce back is coming in Pittsburgh. I believe that Rodgers is going to force feed the ball down Metcalf's throat, and with the upside that we have seen throughout his career, I believe he is an amazing pick where he's going early on in the 5th round. Next up, we're to stay in Pittsburgh with Caleb Johnson, running back of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Current ADP in terms of consensus pick 69. Very nice. I like as the running back number 26. Now, if you don't know about Caleb Johnson, he was the 83rd overall pick in the 2025 NFL draft, meaning he was selected inside of the 3rd round. At Iowa last season, 21 years old in 12 games. He had 240 rushes for 1,537 yards and 21 touchdowns, as well as 22 receptions for 188 yards and 2 touchdowns. So 23 total touchdowns. Shout out to Michael Jordan. And while I did just give the metaphorical fellatio to DK Metcalf, I hit him with the Gawk Gawk 9000 special. And while I do believe he's clearly the wide receiver 1, while he's the focal piece of this offense, you know that the Pittsburgh Steelers love to run the football. Caleb Johnson is a guy that in 12 games last season didn't fumble a single time. He had 262 total touches, didn't fumble at all. He was 2nd in breakaway yards and 4th in yards after contact. He has now been put into a new situation in Pittsburgh where there are 311 vacated opportunities with the departure of Najee Harris, and the Pittsburgh Steelers ranked 4th in terms of rush attempts last season. You know, Mike Tomlin loves to run the ball gently down the stream, and there's going to be a lot of people that say, Nick, Jaylen Warren's going to become the running back 1. They are going to say, Nick, Jaylen Warren, despite the fact that Najee Harris's bum ass was able to hold him back for years, now that they drafted Caleb Johnson, this brand new shiny toy, they're going to toss him to the side and say, I don't want to play with you anymore, and go with Jaylen Warren, a guy who has proven on a consistent basis that he cannot be an RB1 at the NFL level. He cannot carry the ball that many times. And I like Jaylen Warren. I love the efficiency stats that the guy puts up. I have always been excited for him because he is an efficiency stat merchant. He looks good out there when he gets the ball. But the problem is the team has proven year in and year out that they don't want Jaylen Warren to be the guy. Why the fuck would they draft Caleb Johnson if they thought that Jaylen Warren was the guy? They could have just waited a couple more rounds and made the pick there at the running back position, or picked up someone, or just kept Najee Harris on the cheap. Caleb Johnson is that guy. The eye test does not fail me. The eye test is beautiful when it comes to Caleb Johnson with his tape at Iowa for the last 3 seasons. Again, the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be one of the most run-heavy offenses in the National Football League. I get they don't have the most elite offensive line, but Caleb Johnson has the skills to pay the bills on a run-heavy team. And sure, you're going to see Jaylen Warren. It's not like he's going to do the John Cena, you can't see me, and he's going to completely disappear off the face of the earth, get banished straight to Azkaban. That ain't going to happen, but Caleb Johnson is the guy in this offense. Again, Arthur Smith has proven to us that he doesn't like Jaylen Warren. If there was reason to believe that he loved Jaylen Warren. I might be ducking covering on this take, but at pick 69, running back 26, I think you have a running back that has the upside to finish inside of the top 12. Next up, we move to Bo Nix, quarterback of the Denver Broncos, current ADP quarterback 8 at pick number 80. He was the quarterback 8 in points per game last season as the quarterback number 7. He ranked 6th in pass attempts, 12th in passing yards. He was 6th in passing touchdowns. He threw 12 interceptions. In terms of the rushing game, he was actually pretty solid with rushing, 5th in carries with 92, 430 rushing yards, 8th, and 4 rushing touchdowns, 10th at the quarterback position. In terms of efficiency, he was solid for a rookie, 2nd in accuracy rating, 3rd in red zone accuracy rating, 10th in fantasy points per drop back, which is very solid. Now, if you look at Bo Nix last season, it really was a tale of 2 seasons. Now, it's not to say that Bo Nix was some bottom-of-the-barrel quarterback through his first 9 games of his NFL career. It's not to say that Bo Nix didn't show anything, because obviously he did, and he had some solid showings. But weeks 1 through week 9, he was the quarterback number 13. Is that bad for a rookie? Of course not. But when you compare his front of the season to the back, we like the back all that much better. Shout out to Violet Myers. So in terms of passing attempts, he was averaging 32.67 per game, 20.44 completions. Passing yards, he was under the 200 mark with 194.8 passing touchdowns per game, 1.33 total passing touchdowns per game, and 0.67 interceptions. But then in the back half of the season, weeks 10 through 18, a whole brand new beast was awoken, because he was the quarterback 7 in terms of quarterback finish. He was passing the ball to 71.2% completion percentage, 252.75 passing yards per game, 2.63 passing touchdowns per game, 0.75 interceptions per game. And this is a team that got better offensively in adding new weapons. They bring in Evan Ingram from the Jacksonville Jaguars, who, in my opinion, has kind of shed his dropping issues that he had in New York with the Giants. They bring in J.K. Dobbins, who we make this joke all the time, that the guy wakes up in the morning, he gets out of the bed, he stubs his toe, he gets an ingrown toenail, and the guy's out for the rest of the season. But J.K. Dobbins is a solid running back to have, and a guy that can catch passes out of the backfield. They also draft Pat Bryant, who's been getting a decent amount of praise from Sean Payton. They obviously have Cortland Sutton, Marvin Mims as well. So this is a solid weapons core, and you have a coach that I really like in Sean Payton. So I think this is a nice recipe of sugar, spice, and everything nice towards Bo Nix having an even better 2025 season. And typically, when you see a guy in his rookie year start off a little bit slow, and they start to be a nice hammer piece late on into the season, shout out to Thor, that is a good indication that they're going to have a much better next season. So if you're not comfortable paying the high price to get the guys going early on in the draft like Josh Allen, Jaden Stormy Daniels, Lamar Jackson, if you want to wait to the middle rounds to select your quarterback, I definitely am a big fan of Bo Nix this season, especially with the rushing upside that he possesses. Next up, we move to Mark Andrews, tight end of the Baltimore Ravens, tight end 7 last year at pick number 81. Now, last season, if you were a Mark Andrews owner, it started off not just bad, it was as bad as it gets. If you drafted him for the first 4 weeks of the season, the guy barely fucking did anything. He put up 2 games up against Dallas and Buffalo where he scored in both games a grand total of 0 fantasy points. It was Isaiah Likely season. Everyone was banging the Likely drum. People were saying, drop Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews fucking sucks. It's Isaiah Likely season. But they never really put into context why Mark Andrews started off very slow. At the end of 2023, Mark Andrews undergo, he went with a surgery to his ankle in Charlotte with specialist Robert Anderson doing the procedure, and he was out for the season. So he was coming off of an ankle surgery as an unk. Mark Andrews is a little bit older at this point, so he starts off the season slow, right? From weeks 1 through 9, we talked about this with Bo Nix early on in the season. If you had Mark Andrews, it was not very nice. It was very, very bad. You couldn't really start him, but you kind of had to start him because he was Mark Andrews. You thought maybe things were going to change. And he's the tight end 16 through the first 8 weeks of the season. and his snap share is only 55%, right? But from weeks 10 through 18, he's the tight end 6, averaging 14 points per game in PPR, playing 69% of the snaps, and the guy is averaging close to a touchdown every single game. Mark Andrews has been a top 7 tight end in terms of points per game in 6 of the last 7 seasons. Now, I get that, oh, he's this touchdown merchant. He scored 11 receiving touchdowns. That possibly can't happen again. Why can't that happen again, right? The defense is shitting their pants at the idea of Derrick Henry sending them on a one-way ticket to the IR by stiff-arming their head directly off of their body, looking like the Headless Horseman, looking like Josh Norman, right? They don't want that to happen. So they're scared, they're afraid, they're petrified, and then Mark Andrews is just wide open inside of the red zone. I believe the targets will increase from last season to this season. I believe that while Isaiah Likely is a talented player, while Isaiah Likely might be the future tight end number 1 in Baltimore, I don't think it's this year. The efficiency still very much points to the fact that Mark Andrews is really fucking good. 4th in true catch rate, 3rd in yards per target, 5th in yards per reception, 6th in dominator rating, 2nd in fantasy points per outrun, and 1st in fantasy points per target. And we've been talking about this for a while at the tight end position. If you don't get Kittle, Bowers, McBride, I have them ranked Bowers, McBride, Kittle. Those are the big 3. If you don't get one of those guys, you should just be waiting at the tight end position. You shouldn't be instantly pulling the trigger on the Hawkinson, the Laporta, whoever you have as the tight end 4 or 5. I would much rather wait to the 80-plus pick range and get a guy like Mark Andrews, who I think has just as good of a shot as being the tight end 1 as a guy like Sam Laporta, who you might have to pick 30, 40 picks later. And in leagues where your league mate felt like they got fisted up the a-hole by Mark Andrews last season, they might be even more nervous to select him this year. Because people will continue and continue and continue to talk themselves into Isaiah Likely. Mark Andrews, again, this is a guy that has been very consistent over his NFL career, so I'm not going to jump off the ship at a great value now in the later middle rounds of your fantasy football drafts. Before we continue on today's video, talk about the next guy as well as players 5 through 7, I would like to give you guys a quick word from our friend, our partner over at Underdog. If you're brand new to Underdog and sign up using promo code Notorious, you'll receive your free pick plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Plus, you receive to the email used to sign up for Underdog my draft guide, my rankings in early August when I end up releasing those. So it's great. You can get the bonus cash, you can get your free pick, and you can get the draft guide for free with your deposit. And the best part about Underdog is their best ball. Their best ball mania is their biggest contest. $25 to enter, $2 million to first place, $15 million in total prize. The best thing about best ball is it's the draft and that's it. There's no waivers, no trades, no in-season management. Underdog automatically puts the highest scores into your lineup at the end of every single week. So you get to do a bunch of drafts and not have to worry every single week about micromanaging that. It is a great way to practice for your home league drafts. So make sure you guys do check it out. Promo code Notorious, or click on the link in the video description to get your free pick plus a first deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash plus my draft rankings. So back on into things here, we move to Brian Robinson Jr., running back of the left hands up. Who are we? The Commanders. ADP running back 29 at pick number 83. Now, last season wasn't the season that a lot of us would have wanted out of Brian Robinson. He was the running back 28 in points per game, running back 29 in PPR. But it is important to, again, we got to put the season and contextualize it. Look underneath the microscope. Again, sure, there were some dud games. There were some games where he didn't play too well, but we have to understand that he only played in 14 games and was missing time with multiple injury. He missed a game with a knee injury, 2 missed with a hamstring injury as well, and he had knee soreness in week number 1 that didn't even make him miss time. So he's missing some time, he's getting injured, and that really did hurt the production on his season. And I personally do not think of Brian Robinson Jr. as some injury-prone sack of shit loser that just always gets hurt. That's not how I would think of him. Now, I'm as much of a doctor as Johnny Sins, but it's very clear that having a hamstring and knee injury during the season is going to impact your play. And yet, he still had 3 17-plus point performances in the regular season and popped off up against the Lions in the playoffs, scoring 19.7 fantasy points in that game. Behind Brian Robinson, there isn't really anyone that I think is going to be able to get a stranglehold over this backfield and steal Brian Robinson's job as the running back number 1. Again, I get the efficiency wasn't really all there last year, and I'm not just going to blame everything on the injury, but to me, this is a very classic argument to be made about Brian Robinson. It's very simple to make a good argument for him. You are getting him currently in the back middle rounds of the draft, right? Pick 83, running back 29, right? You are getting him right before the range where there are a lot of question marks at the running back position. Guys going behind him that aren't even going to be the running back 1 for a majority of the season on the team. A guy like J.K. Dobbins goes relatively close. Tyrone Tracy, who knows how that's going to play out with Cam Scatterboo, right? At least you know that Brian Robinson is the running back 1 on the team. And you also know that the Washington Commanders are going to be a very good team again. The same philosophy that you make for a guy like Isaiah Pacheco. How, he's on the Chiefs. You think the Chiefs are going to be a good team. They're going to be able to run the ball. They're going to score a bunch of points. So Pacheco, who's going a little bit later, who I like, but I talked about him recently, so I didn't want to talk about him in today's video. That's why you like him. It's the exact same reason why you like Brian Robinson. You feel as though he has a very clear path to retaining the RB1 role in the offense, and you feel like they're going to be a good offense that gives Brian Robinson the upside to maybe fuck around and score 13 plus total touchdowns and end up potentially as a league winner that you selected as the running back 29. Again, I'm not going to do some crazy deep dive and just pretend like his stats were elite last season. There's no reason to do that, but the upside is very evidently there. Next up, we move to the 49ers with Ricky Pearsall, Slick Ricky Bullets, wide receiver of the 49ers, wide receiver 44 off the board at pick 95. Now, in July, we learned that the 49ers placed wide receiver Ricky Pearsall on the active/physically unable to perform list. Pearsall tweaked his hamstring injury on May 29th. On June 10th, head coach Kyle Shanahan told reporters that he expected Pearsall to be ready for training camp, but updates have been scarce since then, and the hope is that he's removed from the list from not, too long. They don't want him to be sitting on there forever. And then Coach Yak, a guy with a shit ton of followers that talks about the 49ers, unless there has been some bad setback that nobody knows about based on what we were told in June, Ricky Pearsall should be ready to roll when the 49ers get back on the practice field for the first time on Wednesday this week. That said, he reached out to the 49ers as well as the representatives for Ricky, and while he didn't get a definitive answer whether he is confident enough to report whether he'll be taken off the PUP or not, he was told that Ricky did not have any setbacks since Kyle Shanahan's last presser. So, to me, while there's, Ayuk definitely not going to be starting off the season playing. He's probably going to miss the first couple weeks of the season. While there's all this mumbo jumbo going on around Juwan Jennings, how he wants a new contract, or I want to be traded, even though I sucked dick for a majority of my career. Not literally, but on the football field. Ricky Pearsall, he's going to be ready to go. Now, he only played 11 games last season. Why, you might ask? Because the motherfucker got shot, and he's still breathing. They tried to steal Ricky's Rolex, Mr. Ricky Rolex. They tried to take it from him, and said, no, not today. So he only plays in 11 games, 46 targets, 31 receptions, 400 receiving yards, and 3 touchdowns. But the man struck when the iron was hot like a true 49er. He was the wide receiver 7 in week 17, wide receiver 14 in week 18, and in week 10 up against the Bucs, he was the wide receiver 13. So again, while all those games, like 11 weeks is not a super big sample size, especially based upon the fact that he was coming off of getting shot, he was kind of eased on in there. I do believe that the 49ers are going to be an offense that gets a lot of opportunity to score. They're an offense that has an amazing schedule for this season, and I trust Brock Purdy. There are a lot of question marks around him at the quarterback, or not at the quarterback position, because I trust Brock Purdy, at the wide receiver position with Juwan Jennings as well as Brandon Ayuk. So where Pearsall is going right now, I think he is a clear guy that is going to continue to move on up draft rankings. And even if Juwan Jennings is good to go, I think you can make a strong argument that Ricky is better than Juwan Jennings. Final guy on today's list is going to be Jaden Riley-Reed, wide receiver of the Green Bay Packers, wide receiver 45 at pick number 96. Now, I was as big of a Jaden Reed fan as it gets. I was a stan. Shout out to Eminem. I was talking this guy up like he was the second coming of Tyreek Hill. Now, did that work? No, it didn't, because he was the wide receiver 43 in points per game. He had 75 targets, 55 receptions, 857 receiving yards, and 7 total touchdowns. In terms of efficiency, though, he was second in target separation, 15th yards per route run, 3rd in yards per target, 11th yards per reception, 7th in explosive rating, and 1st in fantasy points per target. He has those big games in him. He has those wide receiver 1 finishes. He did it up against the Eagles, 33.1 fantasy points. Up against the cold like Minnesota Vikings, he scored 27.1 fantasy points as the wide receiver 2 last season. Sure, there's games where he scores 0 points. Sure, there's going to be games where he scores 4 points. But you can't just litter your whole entire fantasy team with these super safe condom wrap players. Right? If early on in your draft, you went wide receiver heavy, you feel confident on your wide receiver core, Jaden Reed's the kind of guy that you want to take the risk on, because he could be the guy you throw into your flex, you like the matchup, you play him, and the motherfucker goes out there and scores 25, 30 fantasy points and is the reason why you win your week. I understand that he is not safe at all. I understand that there are clear warts in his profile. There have been clear issues in back-to-back seasons why he hasn't finished over 1,000 receiving yards. He just never really seems to cement himself as the clear wide receiver 1. And they drafted Matthew Golden, but in my opinion, I don't think Matthew Golden is some crazy fucking prospect that's guaranteed to be the number 1 receiver in targets on the team. Last year, according to Fantasy Points data, most designed targets in 2024, DJ Moore was number 1, 41. Number 2 was Khalil Shakira. And number 3 was Jaden Riley-Reed with 25. So the team clearly wants to get the ball into his hands. This dude face-fucked my Dolphins defense last year on Thanksgiving and ruined my Thanksgiving, as the Dolphins always do, because they suck cock in primetime. Shout out to Lily Phillips. So Jaden Reed, again, is he safe? Fuck no, baby. Is the risk? Yes, but the upside is too big for me to miss out on, in my opinion, because again, he could just be, if you're scared, you're like, oh my God, I'm going up against the best team in the league because for some reason my team's not the best team in the league. I need this big boost into my roster. Jaden Reed is that, because he could put up that big game. Again, sure, he could shit the bed. He could score literally 2 fantasy points. It wouldn't surprise me, but he also has that upside to score 30 plus. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you did end up enjoying, make sure you guys uppercut that subscribe button. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, make sure you leave a like on today's video. Make sure you guys do check out Underdog to get that deposit bonus of up to $1,000. Get the gimme pick, as well as getting my draft rankings for free. I love you long time. I hope you have a great one. Check out one of the videos on our screen if you haven't seen them already. As always, good boy.